The moment I said, "I do" to Marcus, I should have known his mother would find a way to ruin it. But I never imagined she'd grab the microphone during the reception toasts and announce to 127 wedding guests that I was a gold digger. The reception was perfect until that moment. String lights draped across the garden terrace, jazz quartet playing softly, guests mingling with champagne glasses catching the sunset. I'd chosen everything carefully, paid for most of it myself, though nobody knew that. Marcus thought his parents had covered the venue. His parents thought he'd handled it. I let them both believe what they wanted. I was standing near the cake table when I heard the microphone feedback screech. Everyone turned toward the small stage where Marcus's mother, Patricia, stood in her burgundy mother-of-the-groom dress, looking like she'd been waiting for this moment her entire life. "If I could have everyone's attention," she said, her voice carrying that fake sweetness she'd perfected over the years. The crowd quieted, expecting a touching toast about her son finding love. Instead, she smiled directly at me and said, "I'd like to welcome our new daughter-in-law to the family. Some of you might be wondering how a girl with no family money, no connections, and frankly, no prospects, managed to land my successful son." A few people laughed uncomfortably. Marcus was across the room talking to his college friends, completely unaware of what was happening. I could see his back straightening as he started to turn around. "Well," Patricia continued, "I suppose every family needs someone willing to marry for financial security. Welcome to the family, gold digger." The silence that followed felt like standing in the eye of a hurricane. I could feel 127 pairs of eyes on me, waiting to see if I'd cry, if I'd run, if I'd grab the microphone and defend myself. Instead, I did what I'd learned to do in boardrooms when men twice my age tried to intimidate me. I smiled, raised my champagne glass, and said loud enough for everyone to hear, "Thank you, Patricia. I'm looking forward to being part of this family." Then I took a sip and walked calmly to the ladies' room, where I locked the door and allowed myself exactly 60 seconds to feel the sting of public humiliation before fixing my lipstick and returning to my own wedding reception. Marcus found me 20 minutes later, his face red with anger and embarrassment. "Sophia, I am so sorry. I can't believe she said that. I'm going to talk to her." "Don't," I said quietly. "It's our wedding day. Let's not make it worse." He pulled me close. "You're incredible. I don't know how you stayed so calm." I didn't tell him it was because I'd spent the last 3 years in corporate strategy meetings where staying calm under attack meant the difference between closing a deal and losing millions. I didn't tell him about the late nights I'd spent analyzing market projections, the weekends I'd sacrificed to build the presentation that would change everything. I didn't tell him that in 3 days, Patricia's opinion of me would become completely irrelevant. The rest of the reception passed in a blur of forced smiles and whispered conversations. I watched guests glance at me with a mixture of pity and curiosity. Some of Marcus's relatives avoided eye contact entirely. A few of my work colleagues who'd attended looked confused, like they were trying to reconcile the woman they knew from quarterly reports with the gold digger Patricia had described. Marcus's father, Robert, approached me during the father-daughter dance. He was always the quieter one, the one who seemed embarrassed by his wife's dramatic tendencies. "Sophia," he said, "Patricia was out of line tonight. You've been nothing but gracious to our family." I thanked him, but I could see in his eyes that he wondered, just a little, if there was some truth to what his wife had said. After all, what did they really know about me? Marcus and I had met 2 years ago at a charity function. I'd mentioned working in consulting but never elaborated. When they asked about my family, I'd simply said they lived far away. When they asked about my background, I'd deflected with questions about theirs. It wasn't that I was hiding anything malicious. I just learned long ago that when people know you have money, they treat you differently. When they know you have power, they either want something from you or they resent you for it. I'd built my career on being underestimated, on walking into rooms where men dismissed me as just another pretty face, only to watch their expressions change when I started talking numbers. The weekend honeymoon in Napa was beautiful, but I couldn't shake the feeling that Patricia's words had planted seeds of doubt not just in the guests' minds, but in Marcus's family's perception of our entire relationship. His aunt called him Sunday night, just to check in, but I could hear her asking leading questions about my job, my savings, my intentions. Monday morning, I kissed Marcus goodbye and drove to the downtown headquarters of Meridian Industries, the Fortune 500 company where I'd worked for the past 6 years. I'd started as a junior analyst fresh out of business school and clawed my way up through strategic planning, market development, and finally to director of global operations. The CEO, Jonathan Hayes, had been mentoring me for the past 18 months, preparing me for something he said would change the trajectory of my career. I assumed he meant a promotion to vice president, maybe senior vice president if I was lucky. I'd been angling for it, working 100-hour weeks, flying to international meetings, building relationships with board members. What I didn't expect was to walk into the executive conference room at 9 a.m. and find all 12 board members seated around the mahogany table, looking at me with expressions I couldn't read. "Sophia," Jonathan said, standing as I entered. "Please sit down." My heart started racing. Mass layoffs? A reorganization that would eliminate my position? I'd seen this movie before, and it never ended with the employee getting good news. Instead, Jonathan smiled and said, "The board and I have been discussing succession planning for the past 6 months. As you know, I'll be retiring at the end of the year." I nodded. Everyone knew Jonathan was stepping down. The speculation about his replacement had been consuming the executive floors for months. Names like Thompson from operations, Bradley from finance, external candidates with decades of CEO experience. "We've decided," Jonathan continued, "that the company needs fresh leadership. Someone who understands both our legacy business and the technological transformation ahead of us. Someone who's proven they can handle complex global operations while driving innovation." He paused, looking directly at me. "Sophia, the board has unanimously voted to name you as my successor. Effective January 1st, you'll be the Chief Executive Officer of Meridian Industries." The room spun for a moment. CEO of a $2.8 billion company. At 32 years old. I'd fantasized about it, worked toward it, but hearing the words out loud felt surreal. "The announcement will go out this afternoon," Jonathan continued. "Press release, internal communications, shareholder notification. We wanted to tell you first, obviously, but by 3 p.m., it'll be public knowledge." I managed to thank the board, to express how honored I was, to say all the right things about looking forward to leading the company into its next chapter. But inside, I was thinking about Patricia's microphone speech, about the 127 wedding guests who'd watched her call me a gold digger, about Marcus's family wondering what I was really after. The press release went live at exactly 3:07 p.m. Meridian Industries named Sophia Mitchell as next CEO, youngest female CEO in company's 85-year history. My phone started buzzing immediately. The first call was from Marcus. "Sophia? Did I just see? Are you really going to be the CEO of Meridian?" "Yes," I said simply. A long pause. "When were you going to tell me?" "I found out this morning. I was going to surprise you at dinner." Another pause. "My mom called me. She saw it on the financial news. She wants to talk to you." "I bet she does," I thought. "Tell her I'm pretty busy today." The calls kept coming. Former colleagues offering congratulations. Reporters wanting interviews. Headhunters suddenly very interested in maintaining relationships. And then, at 4:23 p.m., a call from a number I recognized but had never expected to see again. "Sophia? It's Patricia, Marcus's mother." "Hello, Patricia. I saw the news. About your promotion. Congratulations." "Thank you." A long silence. "I think there might have been some misunderstandings at the wedding." "Really? What kind of misunderstandings?" "Well, I may have been hasty in my assessment of your motivations." I waited. Let her fill the silence. "The thing is, we didn't really know about your career. Marcus mentioned you worked in consulting, but he never said you were so successful." "He never asked," I said. "And I never felt the need to prove anything to anyone." Of course. It's just, well, it changes things, doesn't it?" "Does it?" I asked. "Because from where I'm sitting, the only thing that's changed is that you now know information you could have asked for at any point in the past 2 years." More silence. Then, "Perhaps we could have lunch this week? I'd love to get to know you better. I appreciate the offer, Patricia, but I'm going to be pretty busy for the next few months. Taking over a $2.8 billion company requires quite a bit of preparation." I could hear her swallow. "Yes, I imagine it does." After I hung up, I sat in my soon-to-be corner office, looking out at the city skyline, thinking about wedding receptions and microphones, and the assumptions people make about quiet women who smile instead of fighting back. Marcus came home that night with flowers and champagne, full of apologies and excitement, and questions about why I'd never told him how successful I was. His family started calling daily, suddenly very interested in our dinner plans, our weekend availability, our thoughts on holiday celebrations. The wedding video arrived the following week. I watched it once alone, pausing at the moment when Patricia grabbed the microphone. Looking at it now, knowing what I know, I could see something in my expression that I'd missed before. Not hurt or embarrassment, but patience. The look of someone who knows that time reveals everything, and that sometimes the best response to public humiliation is private success. I never brought up the gold digger comment again. I didn't need to, because 3 months after the wedding, when Patricia introduced me at her charity board meeting as my daughter-in-law, the CEO, I could see in her eyes that she understood exactly what she'd lost that night. Not my respect. She'd never had that. But her credibility, her ability to dismiss me, her power to make me feel small. That was gone forever. And unlike a wedding reception speech, that was something 127 guests would remember for a very long time.